The counter to the anti-gun logic would be better off banning cars, or at least doing background checks on car buyers who have had the same issues as potential illegal gun owners, since automobiles kill more people every year and most die due to driver negligence.
Yeah, but that's a separate discussion. That is nothing to do with we should regulate guns. This is purely that a lot of people don't know how to drive a car and car rage, etc., etc., etc. So this is not an argument, not at all. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Johan, and I'm just a typical Dutchman. And I often wonder, why is there such a big gap between Europe and the United States in understanding each other? What is missing in either the education of Europe or the US that makes this gap possible? So to find out, I dive into US history and US history parts to look for those differences in opinion and differences in law that make this gap as it is right now. And if you want to join me and learn about the differences and closing the gap between Europe and the United States, then stick around, like and subscribe so we can close this gap together. And to do so, today I'm reacting to the truth about the Second Amendment from Forgotten History channel. I already subscribed and liked. So let's see how we do and what is the truth about the Second Amendment. Let's dive in.
This video is sponsored by Atlas VPN.
Yeah, the four founding fathers.
The Founding Fathers were a group of late 18th century American revolutionary leaders who united the 13 colonies, oversaw the War of Independence from Great Britain, established the United States, and crafted a framework of government for the new nation, including the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. The first Congress proposed a Bill of Rights as protection for those fearful of a strong national government. The Bill of Rights came into effect in December 1791, after ratification by 3/4 of the state legislatures, and contains the first 10 amendments. These are considered the benchmark laws, inviolate, untouchable, and irrevocable. The most contentious throughout U.S. history is the Second Amendment. What is the Second Amendment?
Yeah, it's always a big discussion point. Whenever happens something with guns and especially large college shootings, etc., then there is always the discussion about the Second Amendment. So what's the truth about it? I want to know.
Why was it listed second in the 10 First Amendments? Why has it been the most contentious of all the amendments?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, a veteran of the United States Army and Marine Corps, former history professor, book author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
Since we're talking about freedoms and rights, you have the right to use the internet without your data being breached, and that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you about Atlas VPN, which is the best VPN deal on the market. Enjoy the most affordable online protection for just $1.83 per month, plus 3 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Atlas is more than just a VPN. It blocks all the malicious links, ads, and trackers, and notifies you when someone is trying to steal your data. Can't access your favorite shows on your Netflix while being abroad? Atlas VPN has you covered. Your catalog will be available even in countries where they may be restricted. Looking for something on Google? With Atlas VPN, you can search the web without someone tracking your activity. Atlas VPN protects all your devices with a single subscription. You can also get the best deals while shopping online, including Spotify and airlines, hotels, and more. Grab the summer deal because now Atlas VPN Premium is just $1.83 per month plus 3 months extra, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and get many benefits of Atlas VPN for the ridiculously low price. You can take this deal by clicking this link, which will also be in the video description below. Be quick, as it is a limited time offer.
Yeah, we don't have this in in the Netherlands.
No violation of a Second Amendment right. We talk like there's no amendment that's absolute. When the amendment was passed, it didn't say anybody can own a gun and any kind of gun and any kind of weapon. You couldn't buy a cannon, and when this amendment was passed, and so no reason why you should be able to buy certain assault weapons. But that's another issue.
Yeah, okay. I don't know the exact content of the Second Amendment, but as I think that what President Biden tells here is in the Second Amendment, it's not stated that you can buy a cannon. So, or what kind of weapon. So, if I'm correct, I want to listen again, because I did not expect that it would be the opening scene.
It didn't say anybody can own a gun and any kind of gun and any kind of weapon.
It doesn't say that anybody can own any kind of gun or any kind of weapon. It's not stated in the Second Amendment.
Couldn't buy a cannon, and when this amendment was passed, and so no reason why you should be able to buy certain assault weapons. But that's another issue.
The original text for the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment was considered the second most important law in the Constitution, ratified in 1791, and was proposed by James Madison to allow the creation of civilian forces that can counteract a tyrannical federal government. Their primary reason for having the right to own guns stemmed from the colonial period when the British tried to take the guns from their American subjects. The reality that the colonies would go to war meant that every able-bodied man needed to be armed. The Anti-Federalists believed that a centralized standing military established by the Constitutional Convention gave the federal government too much power and potential for violent oppression.
Yeah, okay. So there should be militia who have weapons to defend themselves or to defend the Constitution if the federal army does something that is not okay with. And then you have a problem because the army is armed and civilians are not. So we give the civilians the right to bear arms. Or in those days.
This meant that the citizens needed to have the right to protect themselves and their property from any future government that wanted to exercise total control over the population in violation of the law to take away the freedoms they had been guaranteed under the Constitution.
Yeah, that's what I thought. To protect themselves. So you can have a gun to protect yourself under the Constitution if somebody is entering your rights that is granted to you by the Bill of Rights.
Modern militias are most commonly known as State Defense Forces, or SDFs. As of 2010, 23 states and territories maintained their own SDFs. Unlike state-governed organizations such as the National Guard, which fall under the auspices of the state governors and can be federalized in times of national emergency, SDFs fall under the sole jurisdiction of state or territorial governments and cannot be commanded by the federal government. The first major challenge to the Second Amendment in New York, with the passing of the Sullivan Act, was named for its primary legislative sponsor, State Senator Timothy Sullivan, a Tammany Hall Democrat who wanted to remove all guns from New York. It went into effect on August 31, 1911. Lankovich, in his book on New York City, writes that Big Tim was more likely influenced by a desire to have his police friends use the law to frame opponents by planting guns on them. At the time, some complained that the law would only succeed in disarming lawful citizens, while others suspected that Sullivan was just trying to rein in the thugs on his own payroll. Famous lawman Bat Masterson, a friend of Sullivan's, criticized the law as obnoxious and said that he questioned Sullivan's mental state of mind over the law. Most saw that there was no reduction in gun crime as a result, and law-abiding citizens tended to become victims more frequently, especially during home invasions. Another attack was when the federal government started regulating and keeping records of machine guns back when it was passed by the National Firearms Act of 1934. Because of their scarcity, legal machine guns are also very expensive and still require the original 1934 machine gun tax stamp of $200, and the owner or trader must undergo extensive background checks and also permit the federal government to conduct searches of a residence or a gun store.
Yeah, extensive background check, good idea, especially when we talk about machine guns. For clarity, in Europe, there is no constitutional right to bear arms to defend yourself. You can ask for a permit and you can request a permit if you are a collector, or if you're part of a gun shooting club, or if you are a hunter, then you can ask to get a permit to have a gun or to have a rifle. But it's not by a constitutional law in the Netherlands, but in Europe general, that you can that you have the right to bear arms. Nowadays, it is even so that you cannot have a knife, and that's the funny part of it. You cannot have a knife if you intend to use the knife as a deadly force. And if you have a knife in your pocket, like a pocket knife, with the intention so that you want to use it as a tool to peel an apple or something else, then it's okay. Mits, if the limit of the handle is a certain amount of length, and also the other one, and it's not foldable and all those stuff, but by definition, it's not allowed to have a knife or a gun based on the Constitution, because we don't have that constitutional right.
That law mandated strict guidelines for manufacturers, who put them in place for owners to register their machine guns. The next great gun control measure came after the assassinations of President John Kennedy, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. President Lyndon Baines Johnson had the Gun Control Act passed in 1968, which imposed stricter licensing and regulation on the firearms industry.
Stricter what?
Baines Johnson had the Gun Control Act passed in 1968, which imposed stricter licensing and regulation on the firearms industry.
Stricter licensing and
the law was also passed to stop the ability of citizens from buying and receiving guns through the U.S. mail, which was done very frequently.
Through the mail. Order a gun. Oh man.
Lee Harvey Oswald received his Mannlicher rifle that way to kill President Kennedy. The new law also established new categories of firearms offenses and prohibits the sale of firearms and ammunition to felons and certain other prohibited persons, such as illegal drug users and the mentally ill with violent tendencies.
To the mentally ill with violent tendencies. So if you're not a violent person, but you are mentally ill, you can have a gun. Yeah.
Many believe that the only reason Johnson passed the act through Congress was due to the black riots in Los Angeles and other cities, as well as the rise of black radical groups such as the Black Panthers and Symbionese Liberation Army, who used weapons in crimes. Background checks were now a part of the process. The 1968 law.
Background checks, but I don't believe that you guys know better than me. Those background checks, I don't get it. If you can buy a gun at Walmart, who's doing the background check? Walmart?
Also imposes the first federal jurisdiction over destructive devices, including bombs, mines, grenades, and other similar devices.
I hope not that bombs and grenades and all those explosive devices falls under the Second Amendment right. I certainly hope not. I don't know, but as far as I understand, it's not. But damn, if you can have a hand grenade or C4, I know C4 is a bit poor, but any other kind of explosives, legally, that would be very strange.
Congress reorganized ATU into the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax Division, or ATTD, and delegated to them the enforcement of the Gun Control Act. Today we have the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. In 1986, the federal government imposed the Firearm Owners Protection Act, which expanded on the original law. It also banned possession and transfer of new automatic firearms and parts that fire bullets without stopping once the trigger is depressed. The act stipulated that machine guns must be manufactured before May 19, 1986, the cutoff date imposed by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and explosives. Fines of up to $250,000 and prison sentences of up to 10 years can be instituted to those in possession of an unregistered machine gun.
Unregistered machine gun. How will they find it out? It's hard to... Yeah, that's what ATF's doing, but with so many people living in the United States, in not only the cities, but in suburbs and all over the country, it's impossible for ATF to check if everyone has the right papers to bear arms.
Ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds, unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something.
California has always been a hotbed of gun control. Even Republican President Ronald Reagan supported the 1967 bill when he was governor, sponsored by Republican Don Mulford in response to the Black Panthers carrying loaded weapons in public.
One is to make it a misdemeanor to have loaded rifles and shotguns and weapons in public places.
The Mulford Act was also supported by the National Rifle Association, which banned open carry of loaded weapons in the state, and the Mulford Law is still on the books in California. In 1991, Reagan supported the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, named for his press secretary, shot during the 1981 attempt on Reagan's life. That bill passed in 1993, mandating federal background checks and a 5-day waiting period. The Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act in 1994 followed the Mulford Act in California, which Reagan supported, and banned private use of assault weapons, such as certain semi-automatic rifles. This was a proposal by Democrats in Congress and signed into law by President William Jefferson Clinton. This federal ban expired in 2004.
Expired? There is an expiration date on a law, on a federal law.
This was a proposal by Democrats in Congress and signed into law by President William Jefferson Clinton. This federal ban expired in 2004. Some U.S. states have laws that prohibit assault weapons, which is a vague term at best. This has also been considered unconstitutional for several reasons. First, very few anti-gun proponents can even define what an assault weapon is. Second, semi-automatic weapons include any and all weapons, whether shotguns, pistols, and non-bolt-action rifles. All of these weapons only fire with each individual trigger pull, with the exception of double-action handguns, which are not on the ban list and yet are responsible for the most gun crimes in the nation. In the 2008 landmark case, District of Columbia v. Heller, the U.S. Supreme Court concluded the Second Amendment includes the right of individuals to bear arms for self-defense. In 2010, McDonald v. City of Chicago extended the prior ruling from federal laws to state and local laws. This opinion is controversial among anti-gun liberals, and many argue that it conflicts with the 10th Amendment on states' rights to pass laws, including regulating gun ownership. The current sitting members of the Supreme Court, Justices Clarence Thomas, John G. Roberts Jr., and Samuel A. Alito Jr., voted in the majority opinion of both District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago, the two cases that collectively established the individual's right to bear arms for self-defense.
To bear arms to have for self-defense, but it's nowhere described or regulated clearly by the government, and not only by the state, but by the government in total, which guns are allowed and which ones aren't. And even that, even when they try this, there is a lot of commotion from both sides to have or to have not such a regulation.
Argument is that despite the 10th Amendment giving states the rights to pass their own laws, such as having a death penalty, no law passed may usurp the federally protected rights enshrined in the Constitution, and the Second Amendment qualifies. What the liberal anti-gun lobby will never acknowledge is that the cities with the highest rates of gun crimes are the very Democrat-run cities that have the most strict gun laws, leaving people defenseless against criminals. For example,
yeah, that's the argument. So I can hear it. He says this is a state with large or strict gun laws, leaving the citizens unarmed, and that's why there is more gun violence, because the criminals have guns. And that's why in other states, that's to pro and con. If the citizens have arms and the criminals have arms, they can shoot each other.
That the cities with the highest rates of gun crimes are the very Democrat-run cities that have the most strict gun laws, leaving people defenseless against criminals. For example, some cities, such as those in conservative districts in Texas, have very relaxed gun laws, and they had the lowest crime rates due to guns because the responsible citizens all carry weapons. This is opposed to Democrat cities such as Houston and Dallas, which have far higher gun violence rates because only criminals have guns. It would appear that criminals do not go where there are a lot of guns, only where they will be the only people with guns. The creation of gun-free zones, such as at churches and schools, have created a happy hunting ground for the mentally feeble mass shooter. They know that there will be little if any resistance due to the law-abiding citizens not having guns. Hardening schools, armed security, or even well-trained and armed teachers may be a solution, as our children are our most precious assets and should be protected like politicians are.
You hear that the video creator of the creator of this video is pro gun, having a gun for self-protection.
The anti-gun lobby points to the many mass shootings that have taken place over the last 30 years, using those as reasons to remove Second Amendment rights for citizens to have certain types of weapons. The counter-argument is that with over 400 million weapons in the nation, if guns killed people by themselves, there would be millions of people killed every year. The fact is, they never report the fact that on the average, 2 million times per year, a legal gun owner prevents a crime with a firearm, often saving their life or someone else's. In most
Yeah, that's what as a pro-gun owner.
cases, the weapon is never fired. Just having it was a deterrent. The counter to the anti-gun logic would be better off banning cars, or at least doing background checks on car buyers who have had the same issues as potential illegal gun owners, since automobiles kill more people every year and most die due to driver negligence.
Yeah, but that's a separate discussion. That is nothing to do with we should regulate guns. This is purely that a lot of people don't know how to drive a car and car rage, etc., etc., etc. So this is not an argument, not at all.
Another thing that the liberal media does not state is that most gun deaths are suicides. Arizona and North Carolina have dropped the requirements for having carry permits. The gun crime has dropped because criminals never know who may have one and know how to use it. It has been proven that homeowners with home security protection signs have far lower break-in rates than those that do not. Likewise, gun owners who advertise their willingness to defend their lives and property usually do not make news headlines. Criminals may not be smart, but few are suicidal. Another factor that the liberal media ignores that besides car accidents, more people are killed by strangulation, physical assault, and kitchen utensils, as well as hammers and screwdrivers, than with guns. But only guns make the news. In the end, the attacks upon the Second Amendment will never stop. It will take a strong judiciary in the courts to maintain the rights of Americans to keep and bear arms.
If you want to prevent that thugs have a gun, remove them from Walmart or any other. You can only have a gun when you actually ask it at the government with a permit, highly regulate this, then you don't have guns on the streets. But the problem is, my view, my opinion, is that this is going on so long in the United States that everybody, legal or illegal, has a gun. And then you're trying to put genie back into the bottle, and that's impossible. It's now impossible. You have to start with everyone in the United States, each and every one, to disarm and then start the regulation. So, pro or con, it has no use. It's no use. The entire law is there to regulate, but regulate who? The criminals, they won't. As long as it's legal to buy guns at any store or, get it on the street somewhere, somehow.
Perhaps the best way to convert an anti-gun liberal into a Second Amendment supporter is to have another citizen with a gun save their life with one.
We are not finished. We are not finished. We are not finished.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please click like, subscribe, and share. Send us comments and show ideas, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.
Yeah. It's the most discussed amendment besides that I did in the last couple of videos, was the First Amendment, the freedom of press, and the freedom of speech. And now we're talking about the right to bear arms. It's highly discussed about it, but oh man, this is so much lobbying on the background for gun owners, not only the owners, but the factories who make guns and make ammo for those guns want to have this. I know this is yeah, like I said, it's impossible to stop gun violence if not each and every one has to get rid of the gun. And that's cannot be. It's like I said, it's genie in the bottle. Once you have this in the last couple of decades that everyone has the right to bear arms and is armed, you cannot undo this. This is mission impossible. Law or no law, this is enough not to do in any way. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this law good or bad? And can you do something about it? Like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.